You are about to accidentally hand the government exactly $81,000 of your family's hard-earned money simply by giving your children the keys to the house you grew up in. I see families make this catastrophic mistake every single day. Out of a deep, protective love, parents try to make things easy for their kids. They sign a simple piece of paper, thinking they are securing their family's future, only to accidentally trigger a massive tax bomb, expose their life savings to their children's creditors, and completely disqualify themselves from critical healthcare coverage later in life. You have worked way too hard for your home to let it slip away on a technicality. If you are a parent trying to figure out how to pass down your property, or if you are an adult child helping your parents plan for the future, you need to hear this. Over the years of helping families navigate the complicated, often heartbreaking world of estate planning and wealth transfer, I have watched wealth get completely wiped out by well-meaning but terrible advice. Today, I am going to walk you through exactly why signing your house over to your kids while you are still alive is one of the most dangerous financial decisions you can make. We are going to look at the massive tax trap it creates, the hidden risks of adding your children to your deed, and the devastating nursing home clawbacks that nobody warns you about. But most importantly, I am going to show you the exact legal and foolproof method you should be using instead to pass your home down completely tax-free. Let us start with the most common piece of bad advice passed over backyard fences and at family barbecues, the quitclaim deed. The scenario usually goes exactly like this. You bought your house 30 or 40 years ago. Let us say you paid $50,000 for it back in the 1980s. Over the decades, you painted the walls, fixed the roof, paid off the mortgage, and built a life there. Today, that exact same house is worth $400,000. You start thinking about the future and you worry about probate. You have heard horror stories about the courts tying up estates for years, charging thousands of dollars in fees, and causing endless stress for grieving families. So you decide to be proactive. You go down to the county clerk's office or you download a form off the internet and you sign a quitclaim deed. You transfer the house into your kids' names for $1. You dust off your hands, breathe a sigh of relief, and think to yourself that you just saved your children a massive headache. But you didn't. You just handed them an $81,000 tax bill. To understand why this happens, we have to talk about how the tax code views property. When you give property to anyone while you are still living, you are not just giving them the physical house. The IRS says that you are also giving them your original cost basis. Your cost basis is what you originally paid for the property. In our example, that is $50,000. Fast forward a few years, you peacefully pass away, and your children, who already own the house because of that deed you signed, decide it is time to sell it. They put it on the market, and it sells for that current value of $400,000. When tax time comes around, the IRS looks at that sale. They do not care that the house was worth $400,000 when you died, because you gave it to them while you were alive. Their tax basis is your original $50,000. This means they have a taxable gain of $350,000. Depending on their income bracket and state taxes, capital gains tax can easily eat up 15 to 20%, or even more. 15% of a $350,000 gain is $52,500. Factor in state taxes, depreciation recapture if it was a rental, and the loss of various exemptions, and that number can easily soar past $81,000. Your children, who were supposed to inherit a blessing, are now forced to write a massive check to the federal and state government, completely draining the wealth you spent your entire life building for them. Did you know that according to recent financial data, over 60% of inherited family homes are sold within the first year of the parent's passing? That means this tax trap is waiting to spring on the vast majority of families almost immediately. But what if you didn't transfer the house while you were alive? What if you had just held on to it? This brings us to the greatest, most powerful tax advantage available to the American middle class. It is a provision in the tax code called the step up in basis. If you hold on to your home and pass it down upon your death, the IRS does something magical. They completely wipe out your original cost basis and step it up to the fair market value of the home on the exact day that you pass away. Let us run that exact same scenario again, but this time you do not use a quitclaim deed. You keep the house in your own name. You pass away and your children inherit the home. On the day you die, the house is worth $400,000. Because of the step up in basis, your children's new tax basis is exactly $400,000. If they turn around and sell the house a month later for $400,000, what is their taxable gain? Zero. They pay absolutely nothing in capital gains tax. By simply waiting to pass the property down after your death, you just saved your family over $80,000. You preserved every single penny of the equity you built with your own two hands. But wait, I know exactly what you are thinking. You are thinking, but if I keep it in my name, my kids will have to go through probate court when I die. That was the whole reason I wanted to sign it over in the first place. I hear this exact objection every single week, and you are right to be worried about probate. Probate is a public, time-consuming, and often expensive legal process, but transferring your house while you are alive to avoid probate is like burning down your house to kill a spider. The cure is so much worse than the disease. In just a few minutes, I am going to reveal the specific legal tool that allows you to completely avoid probate court while still securing that massive zero-tax step up in basis. It is the ultimate shield for your family home. But before we get to that ultimate solution, we need to address a second, even more terrifying trap that parents fall into when trying to pass down their home. This trap does not just cost you taxes, it can actually leave you entirely homeless. Let us talk about the nightmare of co-ownership, creditor claims, and the unexpected curveballs of life. Many parents think they are being incredibly smart by just adding their child's name to the deed of the house. You figure you will just make them a joint tenant. That way, you both own it, and when you die, the house automatically goes to them. No probate, no fuss. It sounds like the perfect middle ground, right? Here is the brutal, unspoken reality of adding an adult child to the deed of your home. The moment their name touches that piece of paper, your home instantly becomes a target for every single financial mistake, misfortune, or liability that happens in your child's life. You are no longer the sole master of your domain. You have essentially given away a massive percentage of your largest asset, and with it, you have surrendered your total control and your security. Imagine you add your loving, responsible son, David, to the deed of your house. David is a great kid. He has a good job, a nice family, and you trust him completely. But life is incredibly unpredictable. 2 years later, David is involved in a severe car accident, and the resulting medical bills and personal injury lawsuits exceed his insurance coverage. He is sued for a massive sum of money. Because his name is on the deed to your house is legally considered one of his assets. The person suing your son can place a lien on your property. They can potentially force the sale of your home to satisfy your son's debt. You could literally be evicted from the home you paid off 30 years ago because your child got into a car crash. Or consider a more common scenario, divorce. You add your daughter to your deed. 5 years later, she and her husband go through a bitter, contested divorce. Depending on the state you live in and how the deed is structured, your son-in-law's divorce attorney might argue that your daughter's share of your house is a marital asset subject to division. Suddenly, you are sitting at your own kitchen table, negotiating with your ex-son-in-law about the equity in your home. You might have to take out a mortgage on your fully paid-off house just to buy him out of his perceived share. And what if your child faces bankruptcy? Or what if they start a small business that fails and they owe money to the IRS or to creditors? In every single one of these scenarios, your home is on the chopping block. And let's not forget the simplest, most heartbreaking complication of all. What if you decide you want to sell your house? Maybe you want to downsize to a smaller single-story condo because the stairs are getting too hard to climb. If your children are on the deed, you cannot sell your own house without their legal permission and their signatures. If one child refuses to sign, or if one child wants a cut of the money right now instead of letting you use it for your new condo, you are completely trapped. You are a hostage in your own home, held captive by the very people you were trying to help. Have you ever stopped to think about how many families are completely torn apart by these exact legal misunderstandings? It is a staggering number, and it all stems from trying to use a $20 quick fix deed to solve a complex generational wealth problem. Now, if the tax trap and the creditor trap were not terrifying enough, there is a third massive mistake parents make, and this one is specifically tied to the twilight years of your life when you are at your most vulnerable. We need to talk about the brutal reality of nursing home care Medicaid and the devastating 5-year look-back period. As we age, the statistical probability of needing long-term care skyrockets. Nursing homes and assisted living facilities are astronomically expensive. In many parts of the country, a semi-private room in a nursing home can easily cost $8,000, $10,000, or even $14,000 every single month. Very few families can pay over $100,000 a year out of pocket for very long. When the cash runs out, families have to turn to Medicaid to step in and cover the costs of care. But Medicaid is a government program designed for people who truly have no money. It is a needs-based system. When you apply for Medicaid, the government does not just look at your bank account today, they look backward. They employ something called the 5-year look-back period. They will scrutinize every single financial transaction, every bank statement, and every property transfer you have made for the last 60 months. Remember that quitclaim deed? Remember when you transferred your $400,000 house to your kids for $1 to protect it from probate? If you need a nursing home within 5 years of signing that deed, Medicaid will find it. And they will punish you severely. The government will look at that transfer and say, you did not sell your house. You gave away a $400,000 asset just to qualify for our help. They will then calculate a penalty period based on the value of the home you gave away. Because you gave away $400,000 worth of value, Medicaid will refuse to pay for your nursing home care for months or even years. They will literally tell you and your family that because you gave the house away, you are completely disqualified from receiving financial help until the entire value of that house has been privately paid to the nursing home. But wait, it gets worse. You do not have the money to pay the nursing home because you gave the house to your kids. Now the nursing home is demanding $10,000 a month. Who has to pay it? Your children do. The children you gave the house to are now on the hook to fund your care out of their own pockets, or they have to scramble to sell the house you gave them, pay the massive $81,000 capital gains tax we talked about earlier, and use whatever is left over to pay the facility. The very thing you tried to protect is completely liquidated, largely going to taxes and facility fees, and your family is left in a state of absolute panic and financial ruin. Even if you make it past the 5-year look-back period, giving the house away outright leaves you entirely dependent on the goodwill and financial stability of your children. You have zero legal right to live in that house anymore. If they decide to sell it or if they lose it to a creditor, you are out on the street. So let us recap the nightmare we have uncovered so far. If you transfer the house while you are alive, you trigger an $81,000 capital gains tax trap for your kids. If you put them on the deed with you, you expose your home to their divorces, bankruptcies, and lawsuits. And if you try to give it away to hide it from nursing homes, you trigger a 5-year penalty that can leave you stranded without medical care. It feels completely hopeless, doesn't it? It feels like the system is rigged so that no matter what you do, the government, the courts, or the hospitals are going to take away the legacy you worked so hard to build. But I promised you earlier that there is a solution, a completely legal, highly effective tool that the wealthy use every single day to bypass probate, secure the zero tax step-up in basis, protect against creditors, and keep absolute control of their property until their last dying breath. The ultimate solution to passing down your family home is not a quitclaim deed. It is not a joint tenancy. It is a properly structured, revocable living trust. Let me explain exactly how this incredible tool changes the entire game for you and your family. A revocable living trust is essentially a legal bucket that you create to hold your assets. While you are alive, you are the creator of the trust, you are the trustee who manages everything inside the bucket, and you are the beneficiary who gets to use everything inside the bucket. You retain 100% absolute control. When you set up this trust, you change the deed of your house from your personal name to the name of your trust. For example, instead of John and Jane Doe, the house is now owned by the John and Jane Doe Family Trust. Because the trust is revocable, meaning you can change it, cancel it, or sell the house inside it at any time without asking anyone's permission, the IRS completely ignores the trust for your daily income tax purposes. If you want to sell the house and move to Florida, you just sell it. If you want to refinance, you refinance. Your kids have absolutely no say in the matter, and their creditors cannot touch the house because your kids do not own it. You do. But here is where the absolute magic happens. When you pass away, 2 amazing things occur instantly. First, because the house is inside the trust, it completely bypasses probate court. Your will does not have to be dragged before a judge. Your family does not have to wait a year to get access to the property. The person you named as your backup trustee, usually one of your trusted children, can immediately step in and manage or distribute the house exactly according to the private instructions you left in the trust document. No lawyers, no court fees, no public spectacle. It is handled privately, efficiently, and quickly at the kitchen table. Second, and this is the most crucial part we talked about earlier, because you retain total control of the house until the day you died, the IRS considers the house to be part of your estate. Therefore, your children receive the full step-up in basis. That original $50,000 purchase price is completely wiped out. The basis becomes the $400,000 market value on the day you die. When the trust distributes the house to your kids and they sell it, they pay absolutely zero capital gains tax. You just saved them $81,000, avoided probate court, and never once put your own financial security at risk while you were living. This is how generational wealth is actually preserved. It is not done through panicked, last-minute transfers. It is done through intentional, structured planning. Now, I want to address a specific nuance for those of you who are deeply concerned about the nursing home scenario we discussed. A standard revocable living trust does avoid probate and saves taxes, but because you still have access to the house, Medicaid still counts it as your asset. If your primary overriding fear is protecting the house from a Medicaid recovery forced sale, you might need to look into a slightly different tool called an irrevocable Medicaid Asset Protection Trust. With an irrevocable trust, you are putting the house into a lockbox. You retain the right to live in the house for the rest of your life, a mechanism known as a life estate, but you give up the right to sell it and spend the money yourself. Because you have legally distanced yourself from the ownership, once that 5-year look-back period expires, the house is completely invisible to Medicaid. They cannot force you to sell it to pay for your care, and they cannot put a lien on it after you die. Furthermore, because of how the tax code is written, a properly drafted irrevocable trust still allows your children to get that glorious step up in basis when you pass away. Setting up a trust, whether revocable or irrevocable, requires an upfront investment. You have to sit down with a qualified estate planning attorney, not just a general practice lawyer, but someone who specializes in this exact field. It might cost you $2,000 or $3,000 to have it drafted perfectly. I know that sounds like a lot of money to spend today, but I want you to compare that $2,000 investment to the $81,000 tax bomb you will trigger with a free quitclaim deed. Compare it to the tens of thousands of dollars your kids will spend in probate court, or the total loss of a $400,000 home to a nursing home facility. An estate plan is the absolute cheapest insurance policy you will ever buy to protect your family's future. We have covered an incredible amount of heavy, deeply emotional ground today. Let us take a moment to summarize exactly what we have learned so you can walk away from this with a crystal clear plan of action. First, never under any circumstances just sign your house over to your children while you are alive. You are destroying their step up in tax basis, and you are inviting a devastating capital gains tax bill that could completely wipe out the wealth you meant to give them. Second, understand that adding a child's name to your deed immediately exposes your life savings to their divorces, bankruptcies, and lawsuits. You lose control of your own home, and you put your own housing security at immense risk. Third, beware the Medicaid 5-year look-back period. Giving assets away to qualify for government care is a dangerous game that usually results in massive penalty periods and extreme financial distress for your family during a medical crisis. And finally, recognize that the absolute best way to protect your home, avoid the nightmare of probate court, and guarantee a completely tax-free inheritance for your children is to establish a properly drafted trust. I know that dealing with mortality and legal documents is incredibly intimidating. As parents, all we ever want to do is protect our children and make their lives just a little bit easier than ours was. You have worked a lifetime to put a roof over their heads, and it is a beautiful, loving instinct to want to secure that roof for them permanently. But true protection doesn't come from a quick fix. True protection comes from having the right knowledge, taking a deep breath, and putting the proper legal shields in place so that your family can mourn your eventual passing without the added trauma of a financial disaster. I want to hear from you. Have you or your family ever had to deal with the nightmare of a surprise tax bill or a grueling probate process after losing a loved one? Please take a moment and comment your experience below. Sharing your story could be the exact warning another family needs to hear before they make a mistake that costs them everything. Let's help each other protect what matters most.